It is Monday again, 7:30 Central Time, my time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. I'm excited. I want to ask you a question. What makes all of the traps in life work? I had a chance to speak in Brownwood yesterday and had a wonderful time, was received really, really well. And I taught on the intent of the trap. And I was just reminded how many of us need to know that life is filled with traps set for you and I. Some natural, some spiritual, but traps nonetheless. Things that can take our life. You know, there was a show, and I mentioned it in the message yesterday. There was a show used to be on called 1,000 Ways to Die. And I never did watch the show, but the premise of the show was that we face things every day that we don't know could kill us. And things like, we didn't know that an electrical line was hot. We thought the power was off. An accident where somebody got over in our lane and we didn't know that it was coming over the hill and they were in our lane. Just a lot of different things. So I had this question. What's the one thing that makes every trap on the planet work? And before you answer, I want to tell you about a mousetrap. I love a mousetrap. It's elegantly simple. Has 5 working parts that make it do what it does. It has a base, it has a spring, it has a hammer, it has a trigger, and a catch or a scandal on the place where you put the bait. But none of those parts make the mousetrap work. And for the lightning fast minds, it's not the bait either. Now the bait's important because the bait's what draws them in, but the bait isn't what makes the trap work. What makes every trap on the planet work is the same thing: ignorance. The mouse doesn't know the intent of the trap. It doesn't know, and the intent of the trap never changes. The intent of the trap is always to take out the mouse, to deprive it of its life. And when I was 15, Christmas Eve, I saw a mouse run across the wall and into a little bitty hole. Called my dad. He said, we'll fix his little red wagon. So he got a mousetrap, and we used peanut butter. Other people used cheese. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But we put peanut butter on it and set it down. I'm 15 years old and I'm a guy. Sorry. I had my flashlight. I'm waiting to see this thing go down. So I'm laying in my bed, and bam, the trap goes off, and I turn on that flashlight, and there's nothing there but that mouse's tail. He turned and went to run so fast, but his tail got caught in it and cut his tail smooth off. Now here's the crazy thing. My dad reset the trap, and I'll tell you what, that mouse came back. And the reason I know it was the same mouse is because he was missing his tail. Now I jokingly tell people that sucker came back for his tail, but that's not it. He came back because he didn't know that the intent of the trap hadn't changed. So you just got to think about this for a second. You know that it had to be painful, losing a tail. It's like losing a finger or a toe. It had to be painful. But it only took a half hour, and that mouse came back. And this time, smack, and the mousetrap's flopping. I turn on the light. Sure enough, that mousetrap has killed that mouse. But I got to thinking about that as I became a Christian, and I realized that that mouse didn't know the intent of the trap. And the intent, the purpose of that trap, never changed. It wasn't meant to cut off his tail. Now, while that was painful, and while it hurt, and while it did some damage, it didn't actually do what it was intended to do. But the mouse didn't know that. And the mouse came back, and this time, the mousetrap did what it was always intended to do, took its life. And I found that sin is that way. We are ignorant of the enemy's purpose and intent, and we don't realize that all sin is meant to steal, kill, and destroy. The enemy has no other reason. That's his purpose in life, to steal and to kill and to destroy. And the intent of all the traps is always the same. The enemy's not trying to give you a bad day in marriage. He's trying to take your marriage from you. That little argument is meant to be something that leads to another brick in the wall until you have a whole wall between you and your wife, and you end up filing for divorce. The issue, that little thing that's getting between you and your children, is not meant to give you a little bit of stress. It's meant to separate you from your children and your children from authority and wisdom. All of the traps in life, no matter what they are, either natural or spiritual, all the traps work for the same reason: ignorance. We do not understand the intent of the trap. That pornography that you're hooked on, you don't think you're hurting anybody because you're doing it when nobody's looking or nobody's watching. You hid it from your wife, your kids, you don't think are affected by it. But opening up the door to pornography is a spiritual door, and your family is affected by it. It doesn't stop with you. It's opening up a door that your children will struggle with some of the same things because you opened up a door that you do not realize. The intent of that trap is not to bring shame and guilt and warp your marriage and your sexual activity. It's meant to kill you. It's meant to take your life. It's meant to take your marriage. It's meant to take your job if it can. The intent of the trap never changes. And you and I need to understand that. We need to fight a better fight. Now, when I was in school, we had a young man that was really effeminate. And 4 of the football players decided they were going to use him and embarrass him badly in our school. To go into the gym room, you had to have the gym teacher open up the door from the inside. There was no handle on the outside. You could not get in unless the teacher on the inside opened the door for you. Well, they decided they were going to take this effeminate boy, and while he was taking a shower, they were going to push him outside, close the doors, and wait for the bell to ring so all the classes would be let out and the hallways would be filled with people seeing this young man naked. Well, when he found out what they were going to do, and remember, this is 4 football players and 1 effeminate boy. When he found out what they were going to do, they didn't stand a chance, beloved. It was so funny. He beat the tar out of those 4 football players. They went away naked and bleeding, as it were. He kicked, he scratched, he bit, he poked, he punched, he slapped. He just went crazy. But you know what? He won. And he won because he fought like a man who knew what was at stake. We don't fight a good fight in the spiritual realm as a whole, beloved, because we don't know what's at stake. We don't know what the enemy is trying to do, and so we don't fight a good fight. Now listen, I'm only 5'7", weigh about 185, 190 pounds, something like that. And I've been a small guy my whole life. And I will fight you. I'm a pretty good boxer, pretty good wrestler, learned a little things here and there, self-defense and stuff. But if I was to fight you, I would play fair unless I thought my life was on the line. If we were playing Queensberry rules, okay, you hit me, I hit you, we box a little bit, we whatever. But if I thought you meant harm for me or my family that I could not avoid, I'm no longer going to fight Queensberry rules. I will use whatever tactic I have, whatever is at my availability. I will use a phone, a pencil, I will use a straw, I will use a rock, I'll bite your arm. I'm not going to fight fair because the enemy doesn't fight fair. The enemy is trying to steal and kill and destroy everything God has intended for you and I. And we need to fight like our life is on the line because it is, beloved. What makes the traps work in this life is we don't fight a good fight because we're ignorant of what's going on. We think the enemy's just trying to get us in a little bit of trouble. We're deceived into believing that the devil himself is after us today. But you and I are not that important, beloved. Now, he has little imps and demons that he sends out, and we're definitely under demonic assault, that's for sure. There is a spiritual battle going on. But the odds of the devil himself making problems for you today are highly unlikely. We think too highly of ourselves. We do need to realize, though, those enemies that he sends, their tactic is the same: steal, kill, and destroy. So my encouragement today for you is to think about the things that are going on in your life and recognize the trap set for you, and that you would fight a good fight of faith. We will talk about that next time, I think. What is a good fight? What makes a fight a good fight? A good fight is one that you win. And what does it mean to win a spiritual battle, a spiritual fight? We will talk about that next Monday. I love you all so much. Going to say bye to a few folks, or hi to a few folks, depending on how you look at it. Jimmy, my friend, thank you so much. David, Larissa, Nancy, Jim Garner, my friend, it's good to hear from you. I've been missing you. Hope you're doing well. Heather, Stuart, Mary Lou, Karen, y'all are so awesome. Love you so much. Look forward to seeing you next week.